Up next, it's your turn to play a solo. Now, go! Your sweaty palms. Dry mouth. Your reed is completely dried up. You cannot remember the chords or the melody. You're nervous about how everything is going to sound. Can anybody even hear you? You might know this situation. You have a first improvisation or a solo on a gig or performance, and you know this is going to be completely disastrous. What are you going to do? I know this feeling, and maybe a little bit too well. This video is about how to prepare for your solo with a band, play along or video performance or open mic. What are you going to play? What do you need to prepare and what do you absolutely not need to prepare? A very good friend of mine, Christian Rymkjær, we went to the conservatory together. He once told me this real life story about a performance of his. It was a long time ago and he had to play a gig with a local big band he was playing in at that time. It was a youth band, so very talented people, and he had a gig in Tivoli in Copenhagen on the big stage, this really huge stage in Tivoli, really prestigious gig. He even had a solo in one of the tunes. They had a very limited time, only 3 tunes to be played, and one of them he had his solo in. Time was very limited, so the solos were short, and it was about when you played the solo, kick ass. Christian, my good friend, he of course had practiced a lot for this gig, and he was very much into Michael Brecker and his sound at that time. He had all his stuff lined up, he was ready to play. The band is playing the tune where his solo is coming up. It's a 12-bar thing, so it's very short, very intense. Now you have to go 3, 2, 1, you ready? Play for your life. 3 bars before the solo, he stands up, but with the bell of his saxophone, he nicks the microphone. And you know what happens? The microphone drops into the bell of his saxophone. He completely panics and starts pulling at this cord on the microphone. Gets the microphone out of the saxophone, sets the mic in the stand again. He's ready to play, but the whole scene takes 12 bars. And Christian, a very good friend of mine, a really great musician, takes his saxophone and sits down again. No solo, no hip notes, nothing. What do you need to prepare and what not? I think the most important thing when playing music at all, performing or playing at home, have a good feeling about it. That the performance you gave you a good energy, that you had a good vibe around it. That you come out with a, I want to do this again. Nice feeling, cool. So how do you achieve this? Looking at the aspects of a performance, there are really many factors playing and involved in this process. Here I'll only go through the obvious ones and not the killing all dinosaurs on Earth once in a lifetime kind of events, like Christians. Starting backwards. At the performance, there are not many things you can actually do to influence the event. Be sure that your instrument works and that all parts of your instrument is at the gig. Make sure that your music is in the right order. If you need water, have a bottle of water with you. These are basic needs and there should not be much to it, so don't make a big thing of this. If you easily get nervous, try to be cool about it. Try to calm yourself down. If you need peace of mind, go outside and relax. For some people, it really helps to warm up a bit. You could do this visually to warm up your fingers. You could do it actually with the saxophone, just playing a few notes. I've made a recent video on visualization and how you can do this, just sitting in a couch relaxing and basically just playing around with your fingers on the saxophone. Do you have tips how to keep cool at a performance? Please post it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. The performance could be on your living room with a video, or it could be an open mic, or it could be an audience performance, anything. Local club, a little jam. There are much more factors of the day of the gig that you have to be aware of. What stuff do you actually bring to the gig? I think there's one golden rule. Check, check and double check. Obviously, did you remember your saxophone? Do you have the good reeds? Did you put your mouthpiece in the saxophone case? I have a lot of stories about this. One good friend of mine forgot his mouthpiece on the gig, and madness. Don't do that. Is a music stand required? Do you have your sheet music? Do you need lights on the stand to read your music? Are you playing with a tablet? Remember the power cables, remember the charging thing for the tablet. Put the music in the right order on the tablet also. Wear nice comfortable clothes to play in. Also, if you have to look hip on stage. And now, how do you prepare for the gig? Do you need weeks, months, years to get your technical stuff down to play this solo? Well, this may very much depend on the situation of the gig. The situation I'm imagining here is that you have a little gig, one solo, a basic tune, one of your first performances, maybe not one of your first, but second or third. You're not extremely advanced in soloing. The time you want to spend on preparing is also very dependent on how much time do you have to prepare. How much time do you have to prepare, and also how much experience do you have with gigging. One thing is sure, when you are performing the first time, you might be nervous, the second time also, but the more you do it, the better you become, and actually you learn so much when you're playing a gig. So that said, how can you prepare for your solo or for your improv? In my experience, you have two levels of playing: peak level and basic level. Everything you can play easily, I call basic level. It's not about that the basic level is easy stuff, it's just all the things that easily comes out. That's basic level. Peak level is when you're in that zone, extreme performance. The sun is shining, the wind is in your back, and you're just going. It's not once in a lifetime, it happens sometimes. The trick is to get these two levels as close to each other as possible. You need to raise your basic level to get as close to your peak level as possible. This means you are almost always playing at peak level. So raise your basic level. Don't think about the peak level. You'll play that anyways. Raise your basic level to become your peak level. Going from easy to less easy stuff. I can imagine that by one of your first gigs, you're not playing overcomplicated stuff. So choose a tune with one or two chords, one scale maybe, simple stuff. A funk, pop, rock and roll tune is mostly in one key center. This means you can basically stick to one pentatonic scale or one minor or major scale. The most important thing, I think, is know the melody and know the form of the tune. You need to know where you are, you need to know where to start, you need to know where to end. Do this by listening a lot to the material you have to play. Listening actively to a tune is possible away from your instrument. You could do this when you're transiting somewhere, you were sitting in your car, on your bicycle, anywhere. Listening actively means to find out what's the A part, what's the B part, what's the C part, what's the verse, what's the refrain. Do any of the parts repeat? How many bars are in each part of this tune? You can listen to all this when you're doing other stuff. When you're on the gig, you need this information in your head because then it's just there, it's just ready instead of reading it on the piece of paper. Have this prepared in your mind. Find out what keys you're playing over. Find out what chords you are playing. Find out what scales you're playing. What I mentioned earlier, in a pop tune, it's mostly one scale, one pentatonic scale. There can be one exception or two exceptions, but it's basically one or two scales. Mostly, you can get away with playing one pentatonic scale over the whole thing and then ignore the exceptions. Here I think it's very important to get that particular scale or that key center really well settled into your fingers. The basics, get this down so you can play this whenever, wherever you want in the solo you're going to play. Play up and down the scale, find a couple of notes that sound really good at certain spots in the tune. In this case, I'm just playing up the G minor blues scale. Do not make this hard on yourself. There will be enough distracting things on the gig, on the performance, which you have to take account for. Don't make the music hard. And also, don't let a thing like technique get in your way. Play it simple. Make sure that you are down there on a basic level. You have this material really well settled into your fingers. When you get more knowledge, you'll probably perform more complicated tunes. You'll need more scales and you cannot keep it that simple anymore. But the matter is basically the same. Get this all settled in your basic level. With the basic level, what I said, ready to use, out of your sleeve kind of stuff. Does not have to be simple, but have to be ready to use. An example could be this. A relatively simple tune is Cantaloupe Island by Herbie Hancock. My practice would be this for setting a basic level. Learn the 4-note chords going up and going down. Remember to play with the rhythm. Remember to play with backing tracks. How do you put it into a backing track? How do you add rhythm to them? Just play with the chords. A second thing is to play the scales. Learn the scales over these chords. Again, play with the rhythm. Maybe play rubato first and then add a track. As fast as possible, as fast as you can, try to play a solo with the material you are actually using. Play with the chords, play with the scales, but make it simple. Start small. Connect the lines to each other by thinking horizontal. Think about where you are physically on the saxophone and then play in the same area of the next scale. Last step is check the common denominator for the whole tune. In this tune, Cantaloupe Island, it's G minor blues scale. It really works well over the whole tune. I would advise you to divide your practice time into 2 bits. One technical, where you really drill the chords and the scales and the pentatonic scale, the blues scales, and one part where you play solo over the same material with that material you just practice as technique. I would like to recommend you 2 videos I've made on this, how to drill the chords and how to drill the scales. Check in the description below for the links for these videos. So the musical part of getting through this should be about play it simple, play it clear. Use the technique you've got. One method of doing this, pick a couple of chord notes. You can write them down on a piece of paper, or I have done this. Play them loosely, so over the first 4 bars you have the G minor, you play these notes, improvise a little bit. The second part, you have that E flat. The third part, you have this E minor chord. And the fourth part is the G minor chord again. So play it loosely over this. At a certain point, take a backing track and do the same. Not so loosely anymore. Keep to the form. I know there's a lot of hard work in knowing the scales and the chords, but it has to be done because this means you are actually advancing to a new level, and the next tune you'll play will be much, much easier to get around. So here are a couple of tips on how you can do this. Write down the chords and the scale on a piece of paper. Have them close by when you practice, like up front. Don't waste your time trying to remember the chords. Look at the paper and hey, it's that note. Okay, then it's that note. Don't waste your time. The don'ts. Don't do this. The first thing. Don't practice hip and difficult licks. You do not want to put yourself under extra stress by playing hip licks and really difficult stuff. That's just much more information your brain needs to process. Do not add extra scales and chords into your solos. Again, the same reason, extra material for your brain to remember when you are in the hotspot. You might want to practice hip licks as a part of your daily training, of your weekly training, but don't expect them to come out on the gig. When you're practicing hip licks and difficult stuff, keep thinking about they come out. If they come out, if they don't expect it. Third thing, do not change your gear before a gig. You want to play something you really trust. Try to have 1 or 2 extra reeds ready, so you're ready if something happens to your good reed. Don't change your mouthpiece because, oh, this might sound better. No, you're used to that great sound you have, so don't change it. Don't change your neck strap. This feels comfortable for now. You can change it after the gig and say, oh, this really felt weird. But before the gig, don't change a thing. What are your best recommendations for a gig? How would you practice towards one of your first or second or one of your beginning performances? How are you going to practice this? Let me know in the comments below. Do you have any questions about this topic? Put it in the comments below. And of course, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Share this video if you have good friends you need to share this material with. Find all the links in the description below. The last thing there is to say is have fun and play music.